Hello, muito bem-vindo, muito bem-vinda. Aula número 82 aqui no YouTube, aula da comunidade Lab. Nós estamos hoje finalizando o livro The Mountain is You. Um livro muito interessante que ainda não existe em português. Lembrando que o intuito dessa série, dessa sequência de aulas com o livro, é te entregar algo que vai além do inglês, com conteúdo em inglês. Então a gente sabe que inglês é uma ferramenta que entrega para a gente conteúdo de coisas que, na maioria das vezes, ou grande parte das vezes, ainda nem existe em português. So today we're going to finish the book. We're on chapter 7 and we're going to go through it and see what we can learn. A gente está no capítulo 7, nós vamos cobrir esse capítulo e ver o que a gente consegue aprender aqui nele. So let's go. Let's see. Chapter 7. From self-sabotage to self-mastery. Então, esse é o último capítulo, que tem inclusive o nome dele, é o título do livro, está ali dentro do título do livro. From self-sabotage to self-mastery. Moving from self-sabotage to self-mastery sounds like an extraordinary transformation, when in reality, it is the natural course of coming to understand that you were responsible for holding your life back. And so you're also capable of moving it forward, controlling your emotions versus suppressing them. The Buddhists, that's the religion. The Buddhists believe that controlling the mind is the path to enlightenment. Enlightenment by which they mean spontaneous and true happiness. The idea is simple in theory and complex in practice. By both exploring our understanding of the mind and training to behave in a certain way, we sort of purify ourselves to experience the essential nature of what we are, which is, as they believe, joy. If you ever sat in a meditation class, you know that the first principle of mind control is the opposite of what you'd think. It's about letting go. To truly master the mind, the Buddhists practice non-attachment. It's about letting go. To truly master the mind, the Buddhists practice non-attachment, in which they sit placidly, breathe steadily, and allow thoughts to rise up, go here, and then pass. Their approach is that controlling the mind is actually a matter of surrendering to the mind, allowing it to behave as it pleases while regulating their reaction to it. How do you know if you're suppressing your emotions or controlling them? Emotional suppression is a regulation strategy that people use when they do not have adequate coping mechanisms for their feelings. The pattern is often this: the person denies or ignores their true reaction to a situation or experience, believes it will simply go away as if they continued to disregard it, finds that their day to day lives are disrupted by a sense of unease. And one day, it all comes to a breaking point, and they have an emotional outburst that they cannot control. Therapy generally aims to help patients no longer suppress how they feel. Instead, they are encouraged to recognize those emotions but choose how they respond to them. In the healing process, suppressing and controlling can seem like a fine line. When someone cuts off in traffic and you choose not to yell out your window, you are suppressing how you feel or controlling it. If your pattern says yet another idiotic thing and you choose not to respond to it, you are you suppressing how you feel or controlling it? If your coworker aggravates you consistently about a project and you choose not to say anything, are you suppressing how you feel or controlling it? Suppressing is unconscious, controlling is conscious. Suppressed emotions function similarly to unconscious biases. One such type of bias is confirmation bias, wherein your brain sorts through stimuli to bring your attention to facts or experiences that support what you already believe. Though you're not aware of the bias, it is still affecting you. On the other hand, controlling your emotions involves becoming more conscious of how you feel. You are aware that you're angry, sad, or aggravated, but you are choosing what you do about it. It's not really that you are controlling your emotions, but your behavior. When you are suppressing your emotions, you don't know how you feel, and your behavior seems out of control. When you're controlling your emotions, you do not know how you feel, and your behavior seems within your control. The answer is that when you're in traffic or in an argument, or dealing with a difficult coworker, you should be aware of how you feel, but still in control of how you respond. Emotions are temporary, but behaviors are permanent. You are always responsible for how you choose to act. We often think that the measure of physical strength is how much weight we can bear, how long we can run, and how pronounced our muscles are. In reality, physical strength is a measure of how effectively the body runs itself, how capable it is of effectively performing day to day tasks and occasional challenges when they arise. Mental health is the exact same way. It is not a measure of how happy you seem, how perfect things are, or how unconditionally positive we can be, but that we're able to move through day to day life and the occasional challenge with enough fluidity and reason that we weren't stifled and held back by ourselves. Am I Marine very famously disclosed some of the things that mentally strong people do. Identifying their habits and behaviors is essential. But what if you just aren't there yet? If you want to become a mentally strong person, this is where you begin. Learning to trust yourself again. Page 211. 211. Let me copy this, take a screenshot, bring it over to our document. Nice. Cool. So let's go. Learning to trust yourself again. Inner peace is the state of being connected to the deep internal knowing that everything is okay and always will be. The concept of finding one's inner peace has been part of spiritual and metaphysical practices for centuries and has just recently become more mainstream with the development of popular psychology. Albert Camus once said, in the midst of winter, not in the mind, it's in the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. That sums up the entirety of what inner peace really is. The understanding that no matter what is happening around you, there is a place of total knowing and calmness within you. Not only are you capable of returning to that place where you need to, but it's possible to live your entire life from there. The challenge is learning how to connect with it in the first place and rewire how you respond to your mind, which is always jumping from one worst case scenario to the next. You know, when people reference knowing something deep down, they say things like, I'm worried, but deep down, I know it's going to be okay. Or I'm angry at him, but deep down, I know he loves me. What do you think they're referencing to? Where is deep down? They're talking about the place within them that has an infinite wisdom, a better understanding, and a more insightful perspective or what's going on. It isn't shaken by the stressors of fear that the mind wants to offer. Wants to offer. So much of the process of finding your inner peace is being able to get to that deep down place where you know and feel that ultimately everything will be okay. There's another metaphor in meditation in which calmness is compared to studying a lake or a large body of water. Your thoughts and actions are like stones in the water. They create a ripple effect. The point of meditation is to make yourself quiet enough so that the water comes back to its natural stillness. You don't have to force the water to be still. It does it on its own when you stop interrupting it. The same goes for finding your inner peace. It's not so much something you have to create as it is something you have to return to. Nice. So, pretty much just saying that this place deep down, this inner peace, is the place internally that we know what is right or what we should do. And we need to learn how to trust this place a lot more, according to the text. Next goes like creating aligned goals. One of the most important parts of discovering your inner peace is that you trade in your desire for happiness. Unfortunately, happiness is fickle. It can lead you to being attached to certain achievements, belongings, or specific circumstances. It can lead you to become dependent on other people's opinions or life unfolding in a particular way. When your goal is happiness, you will always find just behind it a lingering sense of unhappiness. That's how balance and duality works. Inner peace, however, that's the state in between the scales. When it's your goal, there's no way to lose. This is difficult for most people, and often people will continue to create stress, problems, and drama for themselves because their egos are still very much attached to thinking they need something external to make them feel good. This is the quintessential sign of someone who has not yet found their inner peace. They're searching, often frantically, for a sense of satisfaction, belonging, or worthiness of themselves, outside of themselves. So, really, it's not that happiness isn't a virtuous thing to which you should aspire, or that happiness isn't something you're never allowed to feel. The reality is that inner peace is the true happiness, and everything else is just a false means of trying to convince yourself that you are okay. Think about it in this way. What do you typically imagine will bring you happiness? Money? A relationship? A promotion? What happened when you achieve those things? Consistently throughout all of humankind, the answer is the same. You return to your baseline. This is because this kind of happiness is not real. It is only being completely at peace, which, whenever you are in a given day, that you will find a genuine sense of wonder, presence, and joy. What drives us away from inner peace in the first place? That's a good question. So let's read about it. With all this kind of how we have to come back to a place of inner peace, bring up the question of why we ever got disconnected from it in the first place. This is important because understanding why we lose it is fundamental to finding it again. When we grow up, we adapt to our environments. We adopt the beliefs and ideas of those around us. We alter our personalities so that we become safer. We believe the world can't hurt us. When we are children, we are more vulnerable than ever. And it's during this time that we pick up what can easily become lifelong coping mechanisms. If we're not instructed from a young age to connect with our inner sense of peace, we will instinctively begin to trust the voice in our head. This is where we really get lost because the thoughts that we have on any given day are largely the products of what the would call the monkey mind, or as a neurologist could explain it, the process of finding receptors, firing off, and making associations with things that may or may not have anything to do with reality. When we begin to trust our thoughts, we let them inform our feelings. This becomes a cycle and ultimately traps most people who aren't aware that it isn't happening. They have a weird or scary thought, have a subsequent strong feeling, and a combination of the two makes the situation feel real when it's actually a misunderstanding of your neurological process. Of course, that doesn't mean that our thoughts are useless. It just means that they are not always reflective of reality and should be used as more of suggestions than anything else. But why can people find their inner peace easily? The answer is that they can. Most people just aren't instructed of how to do. But beyond that, most people are actually too scared to go into their own feeling states, because their inner child is too traumatized. Everyone has an inner child. It is the part of you that is most innocent and pure. And it never goes away. Over time, it's your responsibility for you to learn how to parent this inner child, who will honestly be the one to push you away from your inner peace. They will be the one to throw a tantrum and tell you that everything is falling apart and that you're going to die and that you should just give up. In the same way that you wouldn't let a child run your waking life now, you can't always believe what your inner child is afraid of. You can, however, learn to work with them, heal them, and make them feel safe. in the way any good parent would. Stephen Diamond explains it like this. To begin with, the inner child is real, not literally, nor physically, but figuratively, metaphorically real. It is like complexes in general, a psychological or phenomenological reality, and as extraordinarily powerful one at that. He argues that mental disorder and destructive behavior patterns are usually more or less related to unconscious parts of ourselves, and were most often adopted in early life. Finding your own peace. Is that even possible? Finding your own inner peace. Page 216. Finding inner peace isn't always so much about just sitting in the lotus position with wisdom until wisdom becomes you. It's about making the uncomfortable decisions to stay with your discomfort and to choose differently. As Gail Brenner explains, the inner war is perpetuated by resistance, that is, not wanting to feel the way you feel, nor wanting people to do what they are doing, nor wanting events to occur as they are occurring. Resistance wants to rewrite our personal stories and ensure that our plans materialize. She argues that inner peace is the only kind that exists because nothing else is in our control. Another really amazing way to find your inner peace is to constantly remind yourself that your worries are a fabrication of your mind's needs to identify potential threats for survival. And true happiness is being here in the moment. If that's hard to believe, make a list of the following. Everything you have intensely worried about in your life. Go back as many years as you can and be as detailed as you can. Every difficult situation you swore you would never get through or never get over. Every time you have genuinely felt happy and at peace. Guaranteed, your responses to the first will bring a smile to your face and that they will remind you that you have worried constantly in your life, and yet they were mostly unfolded. Your response to the second will also be relieving because it will show you just how much pain you thought was insurmountable in your life and how, in retrospect, you don't really ever think about those things anymore. Finally, your answer to the last question will remind you that your happiness has never come from things being perfect on the outside, but from you being present and open and connected to yourself and to the moment, detaching from worry. In the same way that it's easy to become addicted to substances or behaviors that allow us to avoid the present moment, worrying is chief among the coping mechanisms people use to distract themselves from what really matters. Over time, you convince yourself that worrying equals being safe. You think that by running worst case scenarios through your head again and again, you will be better prepared for them. This is completely false. Not only you're not only you were nor not only are you draining your energy imagining situations that are very often completely manufactured. But when you are already hypersensitive to any of these fears or ideas, you actually create those circumstances simply out of your avoidance or over responsiveness to them. You have to remember that among all of the things to know about the monkey mind, your head wants to affirm itself. If you believe something will be good, it will be. It might not look exactly how you imagined, but the outcome will be exactly what you expected. Finding your inner peace is just connecting to your deepest wisdom. It's not something you have to create, justify, imagine, or reach to. It's always within you, it's always an option, and it's constantly a choice. You just have to make it. Remember that your feelings are not always right. All right, page 219. So let's continue. Remember that your feelings are not always fact. The most challenging part of all this is arriving at a place where you can discern between which feelings are instinctively and informative and which are rooted in fear and ego. In a world that constantly tells you that your gut knows everything and that your feelings are real, and that if you reach in deep enough, you will uncover a well of wisdom that can guide you. It can be really easy to assume that every feeling and idea we have is not only real, but somehow forecasting what's going to happen in the future. Your feelings are predictions. They aren't predictions. They are not fortune telling mechanisms. They're only reflecting back to you what your current state of mind is. It's like having a nightmare. The monsters aren't real, but they could be metaphors for something you're worried about in your waking life. What holds so many people back from finding their inner peace is the fact that they can't tell the difference between which is correct. Their fear is their peaceful feeling. Remember this: the feeling of peace is the one telling you the truth. Your feelings aren't here to tell you what's going to happen. They're only here to inform you of where you are energetically and mentally and how you should respond to what happens around you. Fear is trying to scare you into staying small and keeping safe. It is a mortal, lifetime thing. The feeling of peace is trying to remind you that everything will be okay because it always is. You always will be, no matter what. 220. Becoming mentally strong. Take a screenshot. All right. So, becoming mentally strong. No matter who you are or what your purpose in life, mental strength is going to be a key component in ensuring that you actualize all of the potential latent within you. Mental strength is not a fixed trait. It's not something we inherently have or don't. Ironically, it's not necessarily easier to have it if you aren't faced with many challenges in life. In fact, it's often people who are in the most difficult circumstances they're forced to develop the highest degrees of mental strength. Being mentally strong is a process and it is a practice. This is where we can begin. Get a plan because plans fix problems. Mentally strong people are planners. They think ahead, they prepare, they do what's best for the long term outcome. You might think that this disconnects them from the moment, but the opposite is true. Worrying disconnects you from the moment. Overthinking disconnects you from the moment. When you are consistently sidelined from your own anxiety, it's because you don't have a plan regarding the thing that's making you scared. Think about something you aren't scared of. Do you know why you aren't scared of it? Because you have a plan for what you would do if it were to happen. So you're able to let go and be present. Whether it's becoming financially healthy, improving your relationships, going to therapy, getting a new job, or pursuing a new career path or dream, If you don't have a plan, you're going to keep having a problem. Humble yourself because it's not all about you. It seems like everyone is thinking about you, judging you, evaluating you, and determining your status in life. They aren't. Social media has likened us all to many celebrities in our own circles. We become convinced that everyone around us is disproportionately concerned with the minutiae of our lives. Minutia. All right, so that's how we write minutia. With the minutia of our lives. Here. Cool. In a number of decades, you will be gone. Your home will be sold to a new family. Your job will be taken by someone else. Your kids will be adults. Your work will be done. This isn't supposed to depress you, it's supposed to liberate you. Nobody's thinking about you in the way that you think they're thinking about you. They're mostly thinking of themselves. When you feel self conscious for going grocery shopping in your sweatpants, please know that nobody cares and nobody's looking. When you feel anxious about your accomplishments or lack thereof, please know that the most part, nobody cares and nobody is looking. This is true of absolutely everything in life. Nobody's evaluating you the way you are evaluating you. They mostly take you at face value. Stop thinking that you're the sun that everyone revolves around. This world is not all about you. Your life isn't even all about you. The more you can put aside your spotlight complex, the more you're going to be able to relax. That's so crazy. We think everybody else is thinking about us, but they're not. Everybody's thinking about themselves. Ask for help because you're not supposed to know everything. We live in a specialized society. People go to school, they apprentice and train to become very skilled at one task. They then market and sell this task in exchange for purchasing other people's expertise. You're not supposed to know everything. You're not supposed to be a financial expert. That's why you can hire one to do your taxes and advise you invest your investing. You're not supposed to be a master chef. That's why you can buy a cookbook and ask your mother for help. You're not supposed to be a world class trainer. That's why you can book an appointment with one and learn. You're not supposed to understand the complexities of mental health and neuropsychology. That's why you can visit a psychotherapist and learn how to get better. You're not supposed to know everything. You're not supposed to be good at everything. This is why you have people whom you can hire or learn from. Cut yourself some slack and focus on what you're proficient in. Outsource everything else. Know what you don't know and stop false dichotomous thinking. The main reason that people sustain anxiety is due to long term thinking in either course, otherwise known as false dichotomies. This is a cognitive distortion in which you strew and an entire field of possibilities in favor of one or two polarized outcomes, neither of which are likely or reasonable. If I lose my job, I'm a failure. False. This relationship ends, I'll never find love again. False. This scary thing happens, I won't be able to go on. False. Anxiety is caused by logic lapses, where there's a breach in your reasoning skills. You jump from one event to an unlikely conclusion. Because it makes you feel something strongly, you assume it to be true. Ultimately, you start thinking in dichotomies, which are not only ineffective, but also spock you so much that you are rendered incapable of actually handling your life. Stop trying to be psychic because this is a cognitive distortion. Let's see. Given that our most fundamental human fear is the unknown, it makes sense that we go through mental gymnastics to try to predict certain outcomes in our lives. However, psychic thinking, or the idea that your feelings are premonitions that you can just know what the future will hold, or that your fate is somewhere set in stone for you, makes you mentally weak. It places you in the passenger seat when you need to be behind the wheel. When you are engaging in psychic thinking, you're extrapolating, you're taking a single feeling or experience and making a long term prediction about your life. It is not only false, it often becomes a self fulfilling prophecy. Stop trying to predict what you can't know and start putting your energy towards building what you can. You and your life will be better for it. Take responsibility for your outcomes. Yes, all of them. Um, In the grand scheme of your life, the outcomes that really matters are the ones that are almost completely within your control. It's easier and less scary to pretend as though you are simply a cog in the wheel, but you're not. If you actually put your energy towards learning to be productive, taking care of your health and wellness, improving your relationships, and self awareness, you'd have a radically different life experience. Every single one of those things is within your ability to change or at least influence greatly. There are some things in life that are outside of your control. If you focus on them, you will miss something really important. The majority of your life is the direct result of your actions, behaviors, and choices. Learn how to feel better by processing complex emotions. You're not supposed to feel happy all the time. Trying to feel happy all the time is not the solution, it's the problem. Instead, the ability to sustain positivity at all times, mental strength requires that you develop the ability to process complex emotions such as grief, rage, sadness, anxiety, or fear. When you do not know how to allow these feelings to pass through you, how to make sense of them, learn from them, or simply just allow them, you get stuck on them. You bury them, and then everything around you becomes a trigger that threatens to unleash the floodgates. You might think it's about keeping a stiff upper lip, but it's not. It's about crying when life is sad, being angry in the face of injustice, and being determined to create a solution when a problem arises. That responsiveness instead of reactiveness defines mental health. Forget what happened and focus on how you will make it right. Reflect on what went wrong, learn from what went wrong, and figure out how you're either going to make up for it or change the outcome in the future. Then let it go. The only time you're going to really hold onto the past is when you haven't fully learned from the past. When you have, you can apply those lessons to the present moment and create what you wanted to experience then. Focusing on what happened disproportionately to what's happening now or what you want to happen in the future is what keeps you completely stuck. If you feel as though you truly failed yourself in some profound way, it becomes even more crucial that you move on and create the experience you desire now. Your life is not over. You did not fail indefinitely, but you will. if you never let go and try again. Talk it out because things are often more complicated in your head. If you feel really tangled up in your thoughts, feelings, and fears, talk to someone, perhaps a mental health professional or a trusted friend. If nobody's around, talk to yourself. Talk out your ideas as though you were speaking to someone else in front of you. Sometimes we need an objective third party to help us sort through complicated parts of life. Keeping it all buried in your head and heart often makes it worse. Letting it out into the open tends to simplify the problem, release the emotions, and keep you and help you move on. Take your time because you don't need to figure everything out right now. Growth usually isn't a sweeping thing. It happens incrementally. It occurs in tiny bursts and small steps. This is because when you're growing, you're actually expanding and restructuring our comfort zones. We are readjusting to a new way of life. And if we shock our systems with too much change too fast, we often revert back to what we knew. The most effective and healthy way to change our life is slowly. If you need instant gratification, make the goal the tiny step you take each day. Over time, momentum will build, and you realize that you're miles from where you started. Um, Take triggers or as signals because your wounds need your attention. Triggers are not random. They are showing you where you are, either most wounded or primed for growth. If you can see these triggers as signals, they're trying to help us